So, Assaf, the Mayor's Climate Conference has ended. What have we learned?
Well, we've learned that they need our help, that they are extremely focused on getting the nitty-gritty done, and that they're really at work. They understand the point of now there is an opportunity to take cities and get them to lead the effort on making a difference in climate change. And I think we can really play an important role there because information is very cheap to obtain, cheap to distribute, and calls for action.
The thing that I've learned is that this bicycle business is really part of cities' strategic plans. There's this will to reduce parking, to reduce cars, this will to uncrowd and unclog. And it would be great if the bicycle could play a role perhaps not yet imagined, which requires an active imagination. And I think that's what the Copenhagen Bill does. It helps reframe and makes it fun. I had another thought as well, which is if we're going to save the world, we're going to do it not because of sacrifice, because of sexy. When Arnold earlier today talked about the fact that what he did for bodybuilding and health in the 70s was make it sexy, I thought he was making a joke. And then I realized that your bicycle fits in the same way. It's part of this make it interesting, fun narrative. This is about exciting the human spirit and having us believe not that we're giving something up, which is one lousy marketing proposition, but that we're actually going into an era of a new form of abundance. And I saw it in a very almost trivial way. We went to a cocktail party earlier. Now, the reality of the cocktail party is it was an NGO cocktail party that was really boring, and the most exciting part was smoked beef. But the filmmaker who made the narrative of this whole event shot the people in the snow and this beautiful dome and techno music. He made it seem like that this sustainability thing was some new rave. It was a movement to believe in. He appealed to the human spirit. And so I suspect when all is done, when we actually use these entertainment and marketing and these things that hit our spirit, we could probably move people to change the world. But we can't make it feel like sacrifice. We have to make it feel like sexy. And that's almost like my big takeaway here. I didn't expect that.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because we presented here a project that was done for one city, and they branded it with its name, with great insistence, the Copenhagen Wheel.
Yeah.
People loved it. They wrote it. They thought the experience was great. The thing itself is not rocket science in terms of engineering, but it's a totally new concept of how to move people around and how to engage them in describing what's happening in the city. So, you know, you ride this thing, you can get through longer distances, you can climb hills. I think we've been through that. But what surprised me is that at the end of such an event, mayors from other places, like Mayor of Toronto and Mayor of Sydney, Mexico City, many places around the world said, I want the Copenhagen Wheel. People would just identify with the idea and say, we want to make our master plans, which are impossible, bike-friendly.
You know, I guess I've made my trade in life kind of as a marketing and strategy person, and I saw something here that was stunning. Mayors in every city we've talked to have this strategic desire to create more bicycles, and they hit the exact same problems. How do we convince people to give up the parking spaces? How do we convince them it's not a bad thing to give up the cars? And all of them look to one place, and only but one, as a point of inspiration. It's Copenhagen. Now, the reality is this place has a lot of bicycles because cars are expensive, it's a social estate, taxes are ridiculous, but that doesn't matter. What matters is they've achieved a certain degree of bicycle nirvana. And so by branding it the Copenhagen Wheel, you're actually beginning to brand to the mayor, to the person who's trying to achieve policy, you can tap into the mainstream of the possibility of changing behavior. And I never thought that that possibility existed till I showed up.
Yeah. And I think in this sense, today when we spoke to the mayors, I understood that while at start we thought that the fact that it really allows people to cover great distances, it allows you to do it in any bike, so it's really scalable in many ways, it's sexy, it looks good, it's something that you want to have because you feel proud of it. Cities are really interested also in the data part.
Yeah.
And municipal employees would have a role in providing a double or triple service to the public, but by not owning one of those public vehicles, so they don't own a car anymore to move around, and they collect data for the public, and they
You know, Assaf, you and I are such data wonks that it's almost worth explaining what this means. And I loved what you and Christine told me about Copenhagen. In this city, there are 3 air pollution monitoring stations. 3. And yet each of these bicycles has in it essentially a pollution and weather station. It senses particulates, it senses carbon dioxide, humidity, nitrous oxide. So you can imagine if there are 8,000 of these bikes out, 8,000 data points coming in. We used to think that data that government needed got found by government, slow census takers. But now it's like literally all of us participate. And so to the government data policy type, it's like, how cool is that? Everyone at their own expense feeds our machine and helps us manage the city better.
And the administrators love it, because then you suddenly understand their problems. As a citizen, you suddenly understand what it takes to run a city.
That's right.
And then your political angst changes. Your demand can change, your understanding of the problems can change, your ability to contribute changes. So it has a power in itself as well. It's not just a means of mobility.
You know, you're actually hitting a theme that's at the core of COP15, because we're talking about, by the way, the heads of state are beginning to arrive, and for the first time we've had an overhead security helicopter. If you live in Los Angeles, this is nothing new, but here we have one. So I wanted to make this point. What we're talking about is when you open up this data, and when the city shares its pollution, its transportation data, the public begins to understand what they're up against, and it should create sympathy with leaders. One of the main stumbling points at COP15 is China opening up data. You know, China, do they want to actually open up their economic development data? Do they want to be fully monitored? And you can understand why, coming from the kind of state China is, that open, transparent data is not the first reflex that comes. After all, we've seen that Oakland, when Stamen Design opened up its data and created an API, Oakland freaked. And, they're not nearly as communist as China. And so the point here is that on the other side of transparency, you actually can manage something better. And the big question I have is, how the hell would China learn this message and in time? Because that's a bit impractical. And you're a data guy, so how would you help China with that?
I mean, I think that there's one answer, that it will just happen. Because if the platforms are in place and people get exposed to them, they will start using them. And then we'll see how the government adopts.
Call us crazy. We're leaving as optimists. In Copenhagen in the snow, it's Peter Hirschberg and Assaf Bidderman.
Ciao.
Ciao.